Well, thank you. Thank you. Special Women's History Month edition of our interviews. And we're excited for our guest, Titi Ikhile, who's joined us. We really appreciate you being on as well. Titi, you know. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all. Let us want to thank you guys all again for joining us on this platform for Wisdom for Life and Leadership. I'm sure that we have a great thing in store for us today, and I'm really grateful for our guest, Titi Ikhile, my sister, who has come on to share some great knowledge with us and wisdom. I really believe from God's heart, but also professionally as well. My name is Shea Ola. I'm the curator and the host of this platform, and it's super excited for this opportunity to interview her. We're going to give it another minute here to allow some other folks to come in on the platform, and then we'll go live on Facebook. So
sounds good.
For us, if you're sharing this with anyone, you can let them know we're going live in a moment, and go from there. Let me make sure we're good here. And we're going live on Wisdom for Life and Leadership page on Facebook. So you could definitely check that out for the folks that are coming on. So again, my name is Shea Olam. As I said earlier, I'm here with my guest, Titi Ikhile, my sister. And I don't mean sister, play sister, my real actual sister. So I know I use that a lot with a lot of people, my sister, but this is actually my dear sister. There's only two of us from our parents, and so it's a real joy to have her on this platform. I couldn't have anyone better to be on this platform with us. Just from her experience and a lot of what she brings to the table. I'm excited about her, about what she's going to be sharing with us today. And so stay tuned. Definitely, bring your pens and, something to write with, because I believe that a lot of great things will be shared today that I believe will be helpful in all of our journeys. And this platform, Wisdom for Life and Leadership, is platform that's been around for the last probably 4 years, and our hope is to be able to bring to bear the power and the wisdom of God, both in the sacred space, and that is why we do things like this, and we host events like this and on this platform, and really helping us to be able to ascertain the wisdom in the heart of God concerning different places we've been called to, and I'm excited for that opportunity today. And one of the things that we do on this platform is to bring different professionals and different people on that are able to share on different things and different topics. And so, just as a quick plug, if there is an opportunity for anyone at any time to, and you feel like you want to hear more around the things that we're doing, I definitely encourage you to subscribe to our page on Facebook, Wisdom for Life and Leadership, as well as on YouTube and Instagram, same handles as well. And we are always privileged and honored when we have that come on like this to give us insight, which my sister is going to be talking about today. It's really the wisdom needed to excel in the secular, in the business and the corporate world. And giving her experience and giving her acumen and what she's been able to achieve all these years, I felt like it was great to have her on, and to be able to kind of give what her experience is, her journey, and hopefully that can help us all out where we are in our own specific journeys as well. Whether you're in a corporate space or you're in the business world, it doesn't matter. I believe that the information shared today will be helpful in that place. Titi, you are welcome on our platform.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's a privilege. Let me know when we're ready for me to talk, but I'm so honored to be here. And especially as my big bro. This is like person I looked up to growing up. Getting all the support and all the moral support through life. It's just been a joy doing life with my brother. I always say that he is really a gem. And anybody that gets to know him, blessed to have him in your life. So I'm blessed.
It's a real joy, Titi. Yeah. It's good to have you on. I'm not going to take too much, but I wanted to give a little bit of your background for folks who are listening to us today, and your journey, and really maybe help people kind of understand where you're coming from and a little bit about you. And then I'm sure you're going to talk more about yourself in a moment as we get into Titi Ikhile, who's a pastor, has a passion for connecting people. She has dedicated her whole entire career to financially empowering people, especially women in underserved communities. Her career spans different aspects of banking, consulting work, from SBA at Citibank, and also at JP Morgan Chase. And in 2012, she launched her own boutique consulting business, serving the Bay Area businesses with loan readiness consultation. If you're wondering where the Bay Area is, the Bay Area is actually in California, Northern California. So right in the San Francisco area, okay? In her current role, she serves as the Chief Program Officer at one of the top community development financial institutions in Northern California, where she manages a team that oversees lending decisions for millions of dollars annually. She also manages the community partnership engagement and development for her team, which involves her consulting team as well. Her love for Christ and her passion for strategic kingdom influence in the secular space is one of the things that really define her work. She pastors alongside her wonderful husband, Pastor EJ, or we call him EJ, but we call him Obed is his full name, Ikhile, at Jesus House Salena in California for the past 12 years. She's blessed with 3 lovely kids. My nieces are really wonderful girls, and really always a joy to be around them. She's an international and speaker, does a lot of work internationally as well, and really have an impact in that space. She has intentionally built a legacy culture wherever she's gone, always looking for ways to uplift others. And that's really something that kind of differentiates her from the time she was young. And anybody that knows Titi, like that's kind of where anywhere she goes, she's a leader. She was a born leader. Even so, I have to say, as an older brother, I learned a lot from her. Just her way of doing things, and always want to make a difference wherever she's gone. And so I'm definitely glad to have her in my life. And really, when it comes to the way she lives her life, in every season, she's always looking for a way to uplift God and uplift others. And then so that is something that really marks her life, where she's been around for this last few decades. Since I could say I saw her when she was born, but I don't actually remember when she was born. I was still young myself, but we're definitely glad to have her on. Thank you, Titi. Welcome again on the platform, and we are glad to have you on. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the introduction. And like I said, it's such a joy to be here and to be able to share a bit of just, how God has supported me and lifted me through a journey of life, and what we can all glean from it, and the lessons that I'm also still holding dear, so that it becomes a blueprint for others to follow. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, so let's jump into our questioning on this, for people to get to know you a little bit more. And I gave you a little bit of a background on her professional experience and a little bit of what she's been doing. But Titi, if you don't mind, I know your upbringing, but they don't know your upbringing. So where were you born and raised? if you don't mind just asking.
Yeah, thank you. I was born in Nigeria. I stayed there till I was 13, and really got to childhood was a very joyful childhood. Of course, my brother here, we have a lot of stories together. And we lived in what they call it in Badagry, which is a coastal region of Lagos. And we lived in a community of there was like a federal agency that did like leadership development, and we have people that come from abroad. We have the head of states that come in there, so you're exposed to a lot of like dignitaries in that space. So we went to the school there, we lived in the staff quarters, and so it was kind of like a sheltered environment. And so in that place, you get to just interact. You see a lot of women in leadership. You see people that like, we used to always enjoy youth couples coming and hanging out with them and going to restaurants with them as kids. Some white people coming in, and so it was fun. And then also from a church perspective, we grew up in a very spiritual environment. But I agree, if it's at the corner of it's a border city, and it's border with Benin Republic, which is known for like really voodoo. And so as a child, you're very exposed to like crazy supernatural things happening around you. And so it was part of a church called Shekinah Ministry, and we grew up just at a young age knowing God and knowing the importance of having God as the center of our life, and loving God, then developing a personal relationship with God. And so that was part of like kind of two key things, and just really a home. Mom really was always instilling in us a depth of like personal relationship, pursuit of God, and she herself modeled that. So we really were blessed to just be in a place where we were loved, we had support system, and also were exposed to supernatural understanding early on. So that was a bit. And then we moved here when I was 13. We moved to California, and we first thought we were going to stay in Detroit because we had family there. And we realized that no, it's too cold. It is way too cold. Coming in September, we're coming to California. So California ended up being our destination. And God ordained that, of course, in his infinite ways. We stayed with one of my mom's friends, really close friends, and they really helped us transition because they had kids that were similar in age. And they also were in children, the teenage years, where they also like, youth groups and things like that. So it really helped us to transition well and finish school, Antioch High School, and then went to college from there. So that's a bit of just a little bit of background of just where it kind of started, early stage.
Well, that's really great. I think that one of the things that really marks your life, obviously, is the way you grew up in the community. And if you're hearing Titi's story here, and you're just joining, welcome to the platform for Wisdom for Life and Leadership. I'm Sheyola, your host and curator, and our guest is Titi Ikhile. And I think what you just shared there is really, really profound. It's because what I see there, common thread is community, faith, and then obviously exposure. What you're exposed to kind of shapes you. And I think what we were exposed to as kids really kind of shaped us, and I think shapes the work that you're doing today, right? Your background and how we grew up really kind of is part of what informs us to be, I think, in a way, world citizens, to be locally relevant and present, but also have a global mindset. And I think that's and that is deep and steeped in faith. And that's really great. Can you tell me your first experience around seeing maybe a person that influenced you, that was a person of faith, but deeply successful in the corporate or in the business world? What was your first impressions of someone like that? Yes.
I mean, I would first start off at the early stage as a child. I think we were blessed to have a mother that was had a career and worked, and also was also very much present in lifting and loving God and being very much involved in church. So that itself was a model of like leadership that I saw, and other women that she was also connected to in the work space. But then as I grew older, and I wasn't in the medical field, so it's start looking around and seeing who else, like where can you lean into, that you can see somebody that was really that loved God, not just go to church, but loved God, was able to integrate their work into into their daily function. And I would say that I got a glimpse of it from a distance when maybe I was in college, but I didn't really see it until later, like maybe in my late 20s, where I got exposed and I was working with a person named Pastor Inga Moore. And I was able to see just how navigation of how you bring yourself in your fullness of who God has made you in a very way that is not like preachy, but it's like representation of Christ in such a tangible way. And so, like, you would be in and that might have to go a little bit deeper to set some context. It was somebody I've known since I was a teenager when we moved to America. She was always like, she's in the real estate industry, she was into investments and things like that, but I didn't know all those details. I just knew she was somebody that always supported us youths, when the time we wanted to go on trips. So but later on, I ended up going on a mission trip with her and her husband. Her husband was a pilot. She was in real estate. And so I went to Uganda, into this war zone area. And then coming back, got to like get to know her a little bit more on like what she was doing. And then just how like the intentionality of how she lived her life and how she was able to be really very much like evangelistic. She would give stories like where she's, just random stories of like people she led to the Lord from the random things. Like there's a lady that came to her house to do tiles, and she just started witnessing to that lady and telling her she's mad at her for the tiles, but then eventually she got converted, and 20 years later she's still like knows this person is still working with the Lord. Or like we'll be on the train together and we'll just start talking. She would just say, I gotta go. And now she'll just get up and go talk to somebody on the other side and just say, give her a word, just like boldness, like extraordinary of and then having the opportunity to work with her in the workplace, I got to see what it looked like to step out of your comfort zone, to give prophetic words to your executives, to give like to pray for them, but yet not to be preachy, to actually represent Christ in such a tangible way, to the point where times where things were happening in the organization where it seemed like there was confusion, was able to be like a voice, were able to be a voice in a place where it seems like not that you shouldn't have a voice there, that it just doesn't seem like a place that's, the love of Christ could be easily seen. So those things I was able to kind of get access to, later on in life in a very close proximity. I've seen people in distance. I've seen people like, like say, oh, I love Jesus. And they come out, they're speakers, but I've never really had a closer encounter of working with somebody that lived it out so tangibly, and that such things also influenced me in a bigger way. So,
thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, I think what I'm hearing from you is just first of all, seeing people that were intentional in their journey, people that were able to show the love of Christ to others in a non-like religious way, but still yet impactful, because that is the life that we are to live as believers. If you're wondering, on this particular platform for Wisdom for Life and Leadership, we are here to promote both the wisdom and the power of God, and helping people be able to navigate that in the sacred space, whether you're in the church world or whether you are in the secular arena. So with your jobs or with your businesses, that Christ can come to those places and make a change. When people meet people that are of faith, hopefully there's a difference. Hopefully people can experience something of God even in the boardroom. People can experience the fruit of the Spirit in your life, which we would say fruit of the Spirit is the Christian character and virtues of love, of kindness, of forgiveness, right? Of humility. Can people see that in your life? Can then, and when the opportunity does arise, can you express that very faith that you have on the inside? Because people are going to ask you eventually, where is that coming from? Where did you get that from? What motivates you? And I find that to be true in my work. So thank you so much for sharing that. Our mother is actually on the line as well. I think both of our parents, and both of our parents were great examples to us professionally, as they navigated their way, in their jobs, as well as showing faith in the community and on the job as well. And in the example that you cited was really, really powerful.
Can I share something else?
Yes.
There was a memory that I always remember. There was a lady, she might remember this story. There was a lady, and it's not just one occasion. There was a lady that always had an abusive husband in our apartment where we lived growing up. And there was a day that this woman ran to our house, and because the husband was beating her up, and ran and hid in our house. And my mom was told the husband, you cannot come in. So created a safe haven for her. And not just that only woman, that the other women that had been, that were being abusive, and she had to speak up, on behalf of them in the companies that she worked for, so that their spouses can be held accountable. In the space in Nigeria back in those days, it's not common. And so for me, those are things that seeded in advocacy and how we should advocate for others in a space, and also some of the work that I do just as a woman, and advocating for other women that might not have a voice in this space. So something else I wanted to kind of call out.
No, that's extremely powerful. Seeing that those type of examples, to your point with our mom, just always being an advocate, putting her professional career on the line sometimes to be an advocate for abused women at times, and for children and things of that nature. It's very powerful because those are the things that leave that mark, and we can see that obviously in Titi's life as well, in her work, in what she's doing today. If you're joining us again, welcome. Our guest is Titi Ikhile, and she is being interviewed here. I was seeking the wisdom of God to be successful or to excel both in the corporate and in the business space. If you are here and you have a friend that needs to be on this platform, tell them to join. We're also streaming this live on Facebook as well. And so definitely feel free to do that as well. I wanted to, and I think you mentioned this earlier, I think you came to Christ very early on, and that's kind of obviously shaped your life and the work that you are doing today. Can you speak a little bit about your growth in your faith and how you felt you've been able to express your faith specifically on the job?
Yeah. So of course, like I said, I came to know the Lord at an early age, but of course, as teenagers, you have areas of compromise. You're not really fully committed. You do it just because you want to go, but there's always a seed, right? And that seed never dies. And so, once you eventually get to a place where you can nurture it, you get to see it blossom. When I went into college, I joined a Christian fellowship that was very much rooted in social justice and racial equity work. And so I got to I did a project where I went to Mississippi, which is south of South, and it was a big eye-opener for me. It felt like you were in a third world country when you stepped into some of those communities. And but what it did for me was, at that time I was in business school, and I was trying to navigate, what do I do with my business school stuff. I didn't feel like I wanted to go into investment banking, some of the things that everybody else is doing. And so when I went there, I started realizing how my work could really be a tool for impact. And then I also, from there, I went to this international conference as students called Urbana. It was in University of Chicago. And so that also, it was like they had a platform of all this like leaders and investors that came up and talk about how they were using, their abilities as like a business owner to impact like wealth creation for businesses, and like things like micro lending and impact lending. So I started learning about all this early, and I was like, okay, this is where I want to focus on. And so that's for me, it's in terms of like financial justice was like big part of where it started from. And then I started looking for pathways where I can kind of build into that as far as my work. And then as I grew, I was like a mindset of we're sent, the mindset, a sent mindset is that wherever you go, you have an assignment. And so I operated from that space mentally. So if I'm on campus, at least as an undergrad, it was like, I'm sent here for a purpose. So I have to do what I'm supposed to do for the time that I'm here. And so as I moved on to other things, as work, God opened up doors after college, it was always that sent mindset. Like there's a timeline that I'm supposed to be here. I'm supposed to get things done, not just for a career purpose, but for an impact purpose. So that when I leave, there's a trail of that, left in it. There's something about anybody comes into a space, you should leave a fragrance that's anytime they look back and say, oh, this person was the one that did this here, or this person was the one that helped change this, or change the culture of how things were done, that was, so that it glorifies God. So for me, the way I choose to bring out Christ is sometimes it's not about just saying you're coming in and you're preaching to convert somebody. That's one dimension of the work of Christ. But the other dimension is you want to change the systemic process that sometimes is anti-Christ. And what could that look like? You work in an environment where everybody's so toxic, they hate each other, everybody's always looking to like cut each other. It's like cutthroat environment. And you have to step into that environment. Or maybe it's like there is a lot of cheating going on. Those are all anti-Christ systems. But we have an ability to change that, because why? Some of those things, God's purpose is not just for us to just be saved personally. That's one dimension of his plan, but it says the whole creation waits for the manifestation of the work of Christ, and that his kingdom might come here on earth. And that kingdom needs to be an influence into systems, into the way government is ruled, into the way finance is operated, the way money gets dealt out to people. Selfishness is one of the evil and greed that pulls other people down. So if I step into an environment, I'm listening to God and saying, I'm sent here for a reason. I'm sent here to the heart of the people. I'm sent here also to change the systemic pathways that are anti-Christ. And the heart of the people, I have to bring love into that environment. I have to bring just love and listening and prayer into that environment. When the door opens, I might be able to lead someone to Christ, but it's the work of the Holy Spirit that does the final leading. It's not my job. I have to just to live a life that shines so much that they can't excuse it. And so I would kind of give you an example of how that has played out in my last roles. After working in banking, of course, this opportunity came for me to be, come into to this organization in San Francisco. And for me, it was first initial culture shock. Culture shock because I've been out of college, I've been kind of living life and living suburbia life, and I had not been exposed to certain, I had like a small group of people I work with. So in San Francisco, there's a big LGBT community. And so in my workplace, I wasn't too familiar with what that could look like and how I need to live in that environment. I remember an encounter I had with a lady that in my head, I thought was heterosexual and was coming back from stuff. And I had this whole assumption in my head. And because she was beautiful, she didn't look what people will say biased, quote unquote, in LGBT. So I was like, oh, how was your boyfriend or your husband or something like that? And she was like, oh, my wife. And it just immediately brought a mental shock that I had an assumption that I was in for a new journey of life. And in my work, I have people that were from all kinds of spaces. And God has taught me something. Well, what is that? Is that my primary focus there is, I remember God saying, more love, more power is what you're going to have here. And the love, what is the love? How I need to live my life to love the people that He's placed in front of me, and to give and to live my life as an example of what it means to know God. And so for years I worked there. Nobody knew I was a pastor. They just knew that I was a person. And the last day, one person that was leaving. She was leaving the company. And so I took her out for lunch. And after it was done, I said, do you mind if I pray with you? And I finished prayer, and that lady was like, oh my gosh, that felt so good. Oh my gosh, you're so powerful. Like, you should be a minister. And I said, well, I am. And immediately she's like, what? I didn't know you're a minister. She went back to the office and told everybody that, guess what? She's minister, she's this and this. She just prayed for me. And everybody started coming to my desk and like talking to me. It's like, oh my goodness, you didn't know that you just. I was like, yeah, it's just, I didn't have to tell you. I just had to live my life to show you. And after that, there was another lady that she was, I remember talking to her. She became a really good friend. She's definitely, she was a homosexual, but God said, your job is not to judge. Your job is to be there and to be a light. And you got to represent Christ. And I remember the Lord gave me a word for her. And the Lord said, she's going to have a baby. I have a baby for her. And I said, oh, is that really you, God? And Lord said, yeah, go tell her that. I have a baby for her. And immediately I told her, I said, the Lord told me, I don't know if you know the Lord, but I speak to the Holy Spirit. And He said, I should tell you this. And she just started weeping. She started weeping and saying, oh my goodness, my wife and I have been trying to have a baby, and we don't know how it's going to happen. And within 6 months, she had a baby. And all throughout the journey of that pregnancy, she would keep me informed. I'll pray for her. I'll talk to her and give her, support. And she's like, oh my gosh, I feel like you're my spiritual guru. Anytime I need something, I'll come to you. Why is that important? I have to do my role of just being a light. And representing Christ and being able to be in a space. And so in our workspace, God has given us so much opportunity to just expand His influence, and His influence also in the way we do business. There were some things that we were able to bring up and say, no, we shouldn't do it this way. No, we should change, be more intentional and be truly authentic, and say we give capital out, but then how we're treating the people that are coming in, let's treat them with dignity, with care, with so that anytime they leave our place, they feel more confident. That's become a motto that everybody has taken on. We also set up a room where it's like a Zen room. Can you do? Hey, you can come there, take a nap, you can come there, pray, you can come and do anything that you decide to do. Why? It creates an atmosphere of peace, of calmness, of care in the space, and that people actually start caring for each other. And anytime people come into an organization, and people are like, wow, I feel so much love, I feel so much welcome. This feels like family. It doesn't feel, like nobody's trying to like support each other. Everybody wants to win together. So those are influences of what it means to let love spread in an environment. So those are things that I think it's when I think of representing Christ, it's a systemic change that we need to also keep in mind.
Wow, that is really powerful. I don't know if you guys heard what you just said. You could drop your emojis, you could drop stuff in the chat, but that's very profound. It's about transformation, right? She talks about leaving a fragrance of legacy and change. If you're looking for organizational transformation, this is how you do it as a Christian, as a believer, right? You're not going to hit people over your head with the Bible, but your work is going to speak for you. Let your light shine before men that they would see, right? And that's what we have to be. We have to let our light actually shine. We actually have to be salt, as it says in the book of Matthew 5. We have to be salt and light where we are. And sometimes it's going to be frustrating. Sometimes you're going to feel nothing is happening here. The culture is too toxic. Everybody here is negative. Nobody has they might even be fighting you directly right now. But Titi, thank you so much for that. You said another thing, another great gem. You said more love, more power. If you want influence, you have to have love. You have to show that. You have to show that example and really bring that forth in the work that you actually do. And thank you so much for those examples that you cited, because that's really what it's about. Can you talk a little bit about organizational transformation? I want to kind of back on that a little bit. Some of us are here on this line today. We might be, whether maybe in our industry, whether in our specific work or place, and we want to see change. The environment is too toxic. We don't know what to do. What would be that piece of advice that you would give to someone sitting on this line, or maybe someone that would watch this later, on how to bring transformation? I think you talked about it, but if you can say 3 things, if I can limit you to 3 things like a good preacher, right? 3 things that you could do to effect change or transformation in your workplace or with your business in your community.
Yeah, I think one of the things that you have to first recognize is, what is my role here? Understand what your assignment truly is, because sometimes we can pick the wrong battle and fight a wrong fight that is not meant for us to fight. There are so many, before Jesus came, there were so many prophets that came, and before the Messiah truly came. And what were they doing? They were preparing the way for the Messiah to come. But they couldn't go and just die on the cross. They would have been wasted dying. If they decided to say, if Isaiah said, okay, I will die, I will save us 100 years, it would have just died in vain, because it wasn't the one sent for that mission. So first thing is to understand what you're sent to do in the on ground. And that comes in place of prayer. And that comes in the place of understanding. Once you have an understanding of your role in that, then you want to play that role well, because the Lord has given you the resources to do that. And what could that role look like? It could be that you are the one that's supposed to just be an advocate and advocate when something is off. You could be the one that's like the announcer, that's like, hey, I see this, I just want it to be known. You could be the one that's the enforcer, that's like, I'm not going anywhere until this is changed. But to be able to do that, you also have to have the right level of influence and position. So you might be in the back end, and you might not have the ability to influence some of this change, because the power of the pen doesn't belong to you. But you might be able to speak up and make it known. And so if you observe toxicity, I've been in a place where I've seen that. I've been in places where the Lord has said, silence, don't talk. I have also been in a time where God has said, speak, because I want to use your voice. And I've spoken to the point where it could put my job in danger, spoken to the point where I've taken it to the board, and taken to the founder of the organization. I've spoken to that point. Why? Because I know that that was part of my role in those seasons to do that. So understanding the role and being able to really lean into that is key. And then also keeping the big picture mindset. Not for vengeance is really for correction. You're not after vengeance. Even when somebody's toxic, and even when everything inside of you just wants to, like, I just want them to pay for this. Your goal is not to get them to pay for it. Your goal is to get them to change. You're after a change of an organization. You're not after the debt. So let's that keys, because remember, everybody's a tool, and they might just be a tool in the hand of the enemy, and it's moving them and weaving their hearts to make the wrong choices and to do certain things. But God can take that same heart. Remember Saul? God took Saul and converted him to Paul. So what if you are sitting on the front of a Saul and you just want to slaughter Saul? But God is saying, no, I want Saul for my purpose. So you really have to understand what's at stake here. But at the same time, knowing also setting a boundary for yourself. Setting a boundary of, like, I will not tolerate this. Of course, when Saul was busy killing everybody, nobody wants to sit down and have lunch with him and say, okay, Saul, Pastor Saul, come, let's talk. He's not pastor yet, he's a murderer at that time. So nobody was ready to do that. But what if somebody was praying? Remember, Ananias was the one that was assigned once God gave him an encounter to help lead him. And God had to remind him and say, do this, come and lead and help, be the voice to help transition Saul into a Paul. What if you are that person that's meant to take that son to Paul, but you've already just taken God and said, I'm ready to slaughter Saul. So let's be very careful of not taking the wrong assignment. And remembering that we're there for corrective measures. We're there because we want to see change happen. I'm always called myself a reformer. I step into a place, or whatever my role, I want to see reformation happen. I don't want to see that thing die. I want to see it reformed so that it represents, justice. It represents righteousness. It represents, truth. If we're saying something out there and we're not doing it in here, I want to call it out. But I also want to be a side of truth and also be a person of mercy. So this is what they call walking as the wisdom, the wisdom of gentle as a dove, but also a wise as a serpent. Those combination is very important when you're in a workplace, because sometimes you're dealing with a spirit, sometimes you're dealing with a human behavior, and sometimes you have to listen to God. Am I supposed to speak against the spirit? Am I speaking against the human? And sometimes it's going to be convoluted. We don't want to go into an environment just assuming that this is, you're just dealing with a human place. You want to listen and say, what is this? We've dealt with things in my certain organizations I've been at, and what the Lord said, this is a Leviathan spirit. And I've been fortunate to also have people that were also believers in those spaces that we could stay in prayer. And so the Lord would give an instruction and say, do not speak against this. Just go into prayer. As you speak, I would reveal. And they themselves would almost like they become their own, they fall on their own sword themselves, So we must not take a vengeance approach. We must take a corrective measure approach. So that's one key thing. And then also remembering that God has, anytime a child of God has put them into an environment, he has a plan. And you're not the only one. So sometimes you might just be the one that's an anchor for a season. And then he would bring, or they would say, okay, you're there to just hold ground, to create a system of excellence, to be known, to build reputation in that space, so that when other people come, that you will be able to be there. So for example, in organization, God has given us a grace that we have about 5 other pastors that are in that space. Some of them were unintentional. Why? I was the first one that got in there. And then slowly recruitment started happening. Some of them I didn't even know they were pastors until later on, we started talking. And what has that done? That has created a root on ground and a deeper ability for us to have a capacity to make change and change from the root. God is after the root of the space, but it takes time and it takes understanding of how God wants to make it happen in that place, and also keeping in mind there's a system that you're after, there's also a heart that you're also trying to protect and have the heart of God really change them eventually. So.
Wow. That is very powerful. Again, please put your comments in the chat for us. If you're watching on Facebook, definitely do that again for us as well. You are on the Wisdom Platform for Wisdom for Life and Leadership. My name is Shea Ola. My dear sister here, Titi Ikhile, is our guest, and she's dropping a lot of great gems. I hope you're taking notes because those are really powerful. I love one of the things that you said. You said, my job is not to kill, my job is to bring change. And I think being surgical, in our approach, if you see cancer somewhere, a tumor, you can take a butcher and try to chop it up, but that person will hemorrhage and die. But if you are more surgical in your approach, you can save and bring that person into transformation in life. And I think that's one of the jobs that God has called us to. And I just love a lot of what you said around we're after hearts, not just systems, because hearts also make systems in the long run. And I think if we're able to change minds you can also begin to impact the systems in place that are causing that toxicity to exist or to perpetuate through a specific organization. There's a lot there that you've shared. If you're wondering, Titi is an executive at a CDFI, a community development financial institution in Northern California. She manages a group of people. She's been in that executive role for a bit of time now. And so she brings a lot to the table in terms of understanding how systems work in organizations and how to bring change as believers in change. Let me ask a question. I play devil's advocate really quickly. I know some people might be on the line and say, when is it right to just kill something and not let it live? Some things don't have, some people say some things don't have any redemptive quality. What would you say to that?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And right, people will be like, yeah, there was Jezebel, and then there was Judas. Maybe this one is Judas. Trust me, I played this scenario in my mind so many times, and I've made attempts to slaughter too. And God has said, it is not your place to do that. So this is my own personal philosophy. Seek God. Of course, every situation could vary, but at the same time, remember that the biggest plan of God is the enemy would also want you to slaughter too. Trust me, because he would rather you not move that person and shift them to a kingdom to support a kingdom mindset. He would rather you not do that. He would either rather that person align with the enemy or completely eliminated. It's like either you work for me or you're gone. So remember that the other aspect is almost like you're aligning with the enemy. But I think at the end of the day, remember that some people, God has put them as like a Cyrus. They don't even know what they're doing. But you might be the one to give them a guidance and to kind of guide them through a pathway, because God has put them in that position. And that role sometimes is needed for a reason. So it's important to understand this person that is seated in this role. God, so the Bible said we should pray for our leaders. And so if that person is seated in that place, understanding, is their time going to come up soon where somebody needs to transition and take that space? If it's not, you want to be the closest to them in a way that you want to be an influence. And it's not always that easy, because I've been in an organization for 6 years and I've been at the back end where I didn't have the ability to speak into it. And I've also come closer now where I can pick up the phone and just say, what was that? Like, that was not, we can't be doing that. We need to call you out on it. And I've been in places where I couldn't call that out and I had to just sit silent. So understanding that the timing and where you sit, it also matters. So if God has put you there, then the question is, again, understand your role. And also understand that if this person might be, yes, like it's like the worst of the worst, I want to get rid of him. I want to get them out. I want out and out. I don't care. I don't see they will ever change. Possibility, but how does God want to do that work? God has a plan. You are there to help God's plan fulfill. And so you need to ask him, how should you navigate this process? And what's the best way that he wants to see his kingdom fulfilled? And also remember that God also praying for allies. And remember when I started working in that place, the Lord just put in my heart to start praying for the city. So for like a year, I didn't even know that many people in the city. I'll come there. I didn't even want to come to that job. Like, I was recruited into that place, and the Lord said, start praying for the city. So we'll gather in the main center of of a park, and about 4 or 5 of us would just meet, and I'll send texts out, let's come and pray for the city. And there's some of the things that we started praying for, God started doing it. One of the things we prayed for was God send people that have the heart of God into this land. And I started seeing that happen. I was the only one for 3 years. I mean, it's a miraculous way. I would tell you guys a miraculous story of my journey into leadership. I came into the organization. I was working as a consultant. my director at that time of the consultant left, and I got promoted to director level.
Mm.
Trust me, I didn't know what the heck I was doing as a director. I was like, I know how to consult for clients, but I have no clue what to do as a director. So for a year, I didn't have a staff under me. For about 6 months or so, I didn't have a staff under me. I was just kind of working and getting things done. And we looked and looked, we couldn't find somebody. And then this mentor of mine, I was just talking to her and I said, wouldn't it be crazy where if you kind of like, we're looking for a job, somebody to take a role. I think it would be crazy if you kind of work for us. And we just joked around and I said, yes, it would be crazy. I said, but you should apply. So she applied. She was way overqualified, completely overqualified for the role. Needless to say, we hired her. Remember, she's my mentor. Hired her. Now she reports to me. She reports to me for 6 months. She pretty much mentored me into like what it means to really be a director in the role while she was working for me. And then it came for time for review. Like she's pretty much told me everything I need to know to like do a good job. And I started doing really good. Then I said to our CEO during a transition of workplace, they see all the stuff that she's doing, all the things that she's bringing to the table. I said to her, I said, our new CEO, because we also prayed her into that role, just believe God that she would step into it. She got into the role and I told her, I said, to make your role effective and strong, you need this lady that has worked for me to be promoted to COO role. Remember, she jumped from a consultant to a CEO. So she took her on by my recommendations. She said, yep, I'll take her on as CEO. So now the role transition, she now became my boss. And then from there on, we started bringing and hiring staff. Some of them we don't know, some of them we do. Well, we started hiring staff to bring more diversity into the group. All this while I was the only Black person in the organization. Started bringing more people into the organization that represented the community. So and also represented like a mindset of that to represent what the work that we wanted to do. Over time, some of those people ended up being people that were believers. Over time, some of them were not. But at the end of the day, they brought in a culture that shifted the organization, a culture of care, a culture of equity that wasn't there before. People used to think the organization was a white organization. We came in, and now every Black people want to like do business with us. Why? Because we started being intentional about caring for the people that were marginalized. And that was a cultural shift in the organization. So I would say that even if you think somebody is not capable, God has a bigger plan, way bigger plan than we can ever understand. There's been so many, and God will give like just different like, I remember then I would like get dreams about my CEO and I'll go tell her, this is going to happen. You think you're going to have a baby? And she's going to boom. She's like, yeah, we're having a baby, or something, just random stuff that will come up. Why? Because the excellence that God allowed me to portray, they gave me a voice and a seat and a hearing ear in that space to be able to speak into an environment. So, and so many times I thought I'm done, I'm mad, I want to quit. I'm trying to look for a job, but the Lord said, your assignment is not done until it's done. So we just know that sometimes God is building us, sometimes God is building the people, sometimes God is building the environment so that his plan and his purpose can be fully established. So many people, we get to work with people that have been hopeless, that thought they can never move forward in building their business. And we get to sit and tell them and instill hope in them and remind them that they're capable and they have the ability, rather than come in and just say, oh, done, next, you're disqualified, move to the next one, next. Rather than treating them like a number and devaluing them, we started creating a value system that enables them to be their best and to shine. That is Christ-like. That is so important, because why? So many people can walk away and just give up on life. And there's a trickle effect of that. When you give up on life, your children also going to get impacted with that. Your spouse is going to, something that you're supposed to step into your fullness of your life. You will never be able to realize that. So we cheat each other when we don't help bring Christ-like mindset into a system. It's the entire community loses.
Wow.
At the big picture. So
wow. Thank you. Those are powerful statements. Please you can put comments in the chat. We have some questions coming through already. Please, if you have questions, please slide them into the chat, because I want to start transition into some questions for Titi. If you're joining us, you're on the platform for Wisdom for Life and Leadership. We are very fortunate to have our guest here, Titi Ikhile, my dear sister, who is coming with a lot of knowledge and information for us, wisdom to excel in the business and the corporate world. And bringing the light of Christ where you are, real practical advice, but also spirit-led advice for us to help us gain mastery in this area. That we apply our hearts into wisdom so we can be able to excel and be what Christ wants us to be, and to bring transformation, to bring the life of God into these dark places that we find ourselves. Whether or not you know it or not, organizations, communities, businesses are looking for change and transformation. No business wants to fail. No corporation wants to fail. No community wants to fail. The question is, where are they finding the solutions? They're finding solutions in a lot of random places. And you might think that your organization that doesn't have any religious leaning, they do. You'll be surprised the things that organization and institutions will bring in to give them an edge. Sometimes they bring in Eastern mysticism here, and teaching people how to do different breathing techniques that are very much steeped in Eastern mysticism. You might even have things like feng shui, like how you arrange to bring good energy into your space and your workplace. Some people will build the building in a certain direction towards to channel certain energies and stuff. If you think the world is just like, oh, they don't care about religion and faith and spirituality, you're greatly deceived, because we are in a spiritual battle, whether or not you know it or not. And every organization is being controlled by something. The question is, as God sends us to those places, what transformation can we bring? I tell most people, I've been in ministry for a number of years as well. And I work in a professional setting as well. I'll tell you right now, most of the people that I will encounter in Christendom or in the faith, they're not pastors of a church or even in ministry. They're people that work. Like probably 90% of people that are Christians are not ministers, like full-time ministers, if you want to call them that. They work. You are in the work world, you're in the business world, trying to make a living, trying to make a difference. And we have to equip people better in those spaces. And I think that is so important. And so thank you so much for what you're sharing with us here. I want to switch gears a little bit. I think you're already giving us some great advice. And there was a question in the chat someone asked, and I think it actually aligns very well with two questions I want to ask that I think it's going to be really helpful to folks here. One of the pieces of advice that I want you to maybe bring forth is when you are encountering professional or interpersonal difficulty at work with a colleague or superior, how should you handle it? Should you run from it? Should you try to, sometimes you feel like, well, this thing is, I'm just going to have to find another job. Or when do you make that choice? When do you stay on the job? When do you switch the job? When do you just seek to see transformation? Can you advise? I think someone had a question, a more specific question saying, advise when you have experienced opposition on the job and going forward, you're no longer motivated or encouraged to reach higher opportunities or pursuits, like trying to figure out, how do you handle those moments when they're just taking out the life out of you and you don't want to be there anymore?
Yeah, I completely understand. I was in that place some years ago, and I went. There was an opposition that I fought with all my energy, and I thought I was going to win that fight. I didn't win, and it left me with a sting. And I was fighting not just somebody who was superior, it was a superior that was like speaking up. And I was, when it's an issue of justice and marginalization, it hits strong for me. And I don't have any other option but just to fight. I can't just look. And so I took it to board and I spoke up against it. At the end of the day, there was a slight retaliation. And then I still have to work. It was my superior. And I still have to work in that place. So I thought, you know what, I'm done. I'm going to leave. Like, God, thank you. It seems like this job is done. And I tried. I tried a couple roles to apply out. And as soon as I apply, they wouldn't even say that I didn't qualify. They would just say, well, this job role is on hold. What does that mean? Like, you just put a hold on it, and then, or like I would, and then like the HR person called me and said, please don't leave. We really, it means a lot. And I said, but I don't feel like I belong here anymore. I feel like I have nothing to offer. I'm done. I'm not motivated. I'm not encouraged. I don't feel supported, like all the negative feeling, because it's just like everything has been taken out of you. And so I thought I was going to leave, and I had to ask the Lord, remember your scent and think about it. If you keep that mindset of scent and think of a military person that goes on an assignment, you're sent to Afghanistan, God forbid, and boom, 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 bombing everywhere. Boom, boom, things are happening, and you're like, I'm exhausted, like it's taken out of me. But the assignment is not over, or you're not being redeployed to somewhere else, then you have to stay the course because it's not done. So the first thing is to ask God, is the assignment done? And the assignment is not done because you're facing opposition. The assignment is not done because you don't feel like you're motivated. The assignment is done when God said it's done, because he has something else for you to move on to. And so if we keep that first mindset, then we would be able to move from that angle and know how to adjust. And if you say, no, it's not done, then God, what is the strategy for me to manage this? What are you going to do? In my case, God supernaturally changed the dynamics of that place, that, while I thought like I was no longer going to be relevant, God started moving things and adjusting in so that my work became more strongly excellent. I was holding a lot more. And every time I looked, and they said, oh my gosh, almost like 80% of the organization is reporting to you. And so I had so much that I had to hold, but yet God was faithful to create, continuously lift and create excellence. I was still not motivated. I was still not encouraged, but yet
Please, moderator.
And God still kept doing the work in the space. So I want to challenge and say that first is ask if your assignment is over. And the second, if your assignment is not over, you're still there, then what is the strategy, Lord, of staying in this space and keeping my mind doesn't go crazy while I'm here? How do I keep my sanity in a space, so that I can continue to do this work and do it well? And sometimes it's going to feel like an extra burden. I remember those years I just was like, man, I'm tired. Every day I wake up, I don't want to do this, but like, God, I'm willing if I'm still supposed to be there. And then those times, God worked on me personally, on me in that space of like helping me understand what I bring to the table. And it was a inner journey that I ended up doing more of in that time. And also knowing that understanding how God transitions you, when God transitions you, like how has it transitioned you through new places, and listen for that. Because then that would be your note of saying, okay, it's time to move on. But if it's not yet time, then remember that we also live in a legacy footprint. But what if there are other Black women or people of color that you have to create a footprint for them to follow? And so sometimes somebody has to be like, almost carry the harder cross up front, so that when other people come back, they'll be like, wow, that person did such an excellent job. I always think, man, I don't want to be the reason why they don't hire any other Black executive in our organization. God, please don't let me fail you. And also let me fail my people, because it's the truth is the truth. Like, they'll just be like, it's a memory bank that people don't forget, and they will also remember. And they assign it, whether we like it or not, they assign certain notes to like those things of just like, it's just a data point in their mind, like, oh yeah, this is who that person is that did so well, this is who that person is that didn't do so well. And they might not want to bring that in. So think about legacy first when you're trying to make that adjustment. Think about how God has transitioned you historically. And also think about the set by set. And then if you're to stay, then God is going to build a core inside of you. Inside of the biggest adversity is where we grow the most, is where we hear the voice of God the most. So then just lean in on the Lord to help you in that time. And in terms of workplace strategies, of course, when you are being facing opposition, document so you can advocate for yourself. Write stuff down that you're doing well, and write stuff down that somebody's doing to you. You know, sometimes HR is your best ally, sometimes they're not, sometimes they just don't do anything, you know. And then also find allies in your network, allies that are also in the same place or maybe a little bit outside, that can be a support system. I found a great ally that I could just vent with and just be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened. And then she'll be like, yeah, I understand. And like, okay, let's strategize on how we're going to that meeting. So allies on the practical space to just survive and have your sanity, having an ally in that space matters. And sometimes you might not even find an ally. Some people work in an environment where it's so bad and they can't even find an ally in that space. Then I'd say, try to find networks of places where maybe it's virtual. Well, there are other working women where you can just like, you need a venting space. You can vent to God, but you also need a human venting space. So find people that will allow you to vent so that you release the pressure while you're in there to keep your sanity. So those are things I recommend.
Wow, that is powerful. Again, I think what you just said there, I hope you guys are taking notes. Again, it's really in line with why we have this platform and why we bring such content like this. One of the things that we're very passionate on is helping people understand transitions and seasons on this platform. And that part of that for us is understanding that obviously there's 4 seasons, and we would say, you can use different words for it, but we'll say there's seasons of obscurity, a peak season, a season of prominence, right? That God brings you through, and a season of transition. And so understanding those things is very critical in helping you kind of navigate where you are in your journey, so that you know you're not fighting against the tide. If God has you in a season of obscurity, you're going to have to go through that season and learn the lessons you have to learn. When God tells us a time of prominence, it's going to transition you into that space, and you're going to be able to scale up and be where God wants you to be. So thank you so much, Titi, for that. And I love some of the things that you said. You saying that, you know, important to understand that you're sent. If I can use a Christian term that we use in the church, which is it's an apostolic, your apostolic mission. The word apostle comes from the word apostolos, which means to be sent. Now, not everybody's an apostle, but we all can be apostolic. It's part of the Great Commission to go, to be sent out. And so in that spirit, I think understanding what your assignment is, why you're sent to this job. And sometimes we're all still looking and we can't find the next exit door out. And when your assignment is not done, you feel like these days are dark, you hate your job. I don't want to be here. I don't know what to do. I don't know. And there's a way that God brings us through those moments. So it's important. I love what you said. So understand that you're sent, understand your role, your specific assignment, transition, understand the seasons of transitions in your life. And then understand that you've been put there for a legacy that God wants you to leave, that hopefully a fragrance of God is left in that place that impacts another generation of folks. On the practical side, you said we should document. So please document. You could document on the platform of the organization. Sometimes that's good to do that. And also maybe by sending an email to yourself to take the time spent stamped. You can send an email to yourself, CC, maybe send another email, to yourself on the job, and also write an email from your own specific email as well, just to make sure you have something time stamped. Find an ally, find that network. One of the things I would say to people is like, please find allies that will build you up. Find allies that are not just going to cause you just to complain, and it doesn't breathe life. But people that will say, okay, I hear you, but let's keep on believing. People that will give you an ear in ear, but they will also give you that place to continue to go. Titi, there's a question that I want to ask. There's another question that was put in here as well, but there's a question I want to ask, and I know might be heavy on a lot of people's minds. What would you say to someone who's experiencing stagnation in their job right now? Maybe in line with what you're saying. They feel stuck, or maybe they feel like, my gosh, I don't know what to do with my business next. My business is barely hanging on.
Yeah.
And then you have been in a unique space because in your role, obviously you're in a corporate setting, you're helping different people, and you've been able to advance in your career over time, and to being an executive right now. So you obviously have a few things to tell people about stagnation and growth, but also to you actually advise small business owners across, not just in the States, but even in Nigeria as well, on what to do. What do you tell someone who's experiencing stagnation, or they feel like their business is about to fail, or they don't know what to do next, and they want to see growth in their lives professionally and in their business?
Yeah. That's first of all, I just know that that's a place that I have been. We will all be as part of life cycle, and so stagnation is something that sometimes births a hunger, for shift and a shift to happen. You're tired of it. Usually, when somebody is recognizing that there's a stagnation, there's going to be a deeper sense of hunger for change and to move out of it. I think one of the things we also want to recognize in the space is that not to beat ourselves up, but to also do an inventory of what we actually bring to the table. I think sometimes when we go through life and we just do, we forget what's been given to, or what we're capable of doing, like the things that make us shine, the things that people were like, oh my goodness, you do this so well. Like, you even forget. You're like, oh, I'm just doing my routine. I just go through that, do. But if we can take a step back, get a journal, and just inventory the things that makes you, that brings you joy so much, and like just lightens you up, that you will do it without getting paid. The things that people speak about that just like, they're like, man, you do this so well. You want to note those things, so that in your mind, you're coming from a place where you're filled with the knowledge of the goodness and the greatness that God has placed inside of you. And then you will now want to now say, okay, what is the disconnect? What's a disconnect for me that I can't, like, where is it that I would like to go into? The second thing is now to visualize what is the next look like. Sometimes we know, sometimes we don't know. Sometimes it's a big black box. I was in a place where I was in a big black box at some points years ago, and I just knew there was some more, but I just couldn't explain what that more could look like. I thought I knew. So what did I do? I started praying. I started praying, God, help me, send me like my own NNIS, like somebody that could help me just untangle the weeds, and some people can untangle it themselves. And some people need other people to kind of help untangle that for them. And so if you feel like you have a sense of where you want to go and you just don't know how to get there, that's actually an easier process, because there's a vision of where you believe God is asking you to step into. You're just trying to find the bridge into that place. If you know where you're headed and you know what that looks like, you can paint a picture of it mentally, then the key is to now just say, who are the people? What are the kind of people that could help me get there? And then start surrounding yourself with that. Like right now, I'm interested in like investing and helping other people. I do it for an organization, but I would like to do that for my own pocket. So now what am I surrounding myself? I'm trying to get into places where other women are leading. I do an investment so I can understand their lingo. I can understand what works and what doesn't work, and so I can be competent and equipped in that place. Sometimes we want to go somewhere, but we're not quite yet equipped for it. And so that door will not open. If it opens, it will open prematurely, and you wouldn't be able to take advantage of it. So it's to understand where you are, where you have a vision of where you want to go. And then the bridge in between is equipping yourself on knowing who are the people, the kind of people that you want to surround yourself with. You want to surround yourself with other mentors, other people that are already doing that space. Thank God for virtual space, meetups are there. And people, you'll be surprised, people want to talk. They want to give you advice, but sometimes we're sure we don't even know how to ask. We don't even know. So I go on LinkedIn. This is one of the things I do. I go on LinkedIn. I go and another social media for business. That's where I prefer to spend. I don't do other social medias as much. But that one I do go to. Why? Because on a professional level, I can see organizations and people that are like, oh, wow, they inspire me. I'm going to follow them. And what that means, once I start following them, is I would know when they have an event or something coming up. I'll log into that. I'll start noting it. I'll send them a quick message. I say, "Oh my goodness, you did a great job on your presentation." In that way, I can get an opportunity to chat with them. Sometimes they respond, sometimes they don't respond. But I'm starting to equip myself. I'm starting to kind of download, like mental download of some of these pathways that I can go. And so when something opens up, it's much easier. There's like a roadmap. And then for people that feels like it's a black hole, the vision of where that next, that comfortable, you're still in that, you're in that comfort zone. You want something to push you. I think one of the questions was that how if set ourselves in a comfort zone, how do you get yourself out of that, out of that comfort zone? I would say surround yourself with people that are doing more. Surround yourself with people that are doing more. It will push you faster than you realize. I have a network of women that love Jesus, that I just randomly pick a phone and pick up, and they challenge me. They challenge me so that I can also pursue God. And if you're not able to have them personally, then follow them online. Let them challenge you online, and have somebody that keeps you accountable, that can push you to that next level. So those are my response. I hope I answered the question. If I didn't, please rephrase it for me.
No, I think you did good there. I mean, thank you so much for those things. It's like, think about what brings you joy, right? And then identify that for yourself, in your life, and you're feeling stuck. Like, what am I good at? And looking at what's next. Begin to try to visualize what's next for you in your journey, right? And it's just like, it's the battlefield of the mind. The scripture tells us, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Prayer, the word of God, is one of the ways our minds can begin to be shaped, that we have to have the mind of Christ, that Christ has something in mind for you, where he wants to take you. But it first comes to the place where your mind has to be transformed into his image, so that you can actually be able to understand what he has for you. Because maybe something that you're looking at right now is not what God actually wants you to be looking at, and your mind is not transformed or developed enough for you to see what God has for you in a specific area. Sometimes we're stuck in paradigms, as Titi said. We are stuck in paradigms of, this is what some folks did in the past, and this is how it should be. And God might want to bust you out of a specific paradigm to free your mind to actually dream and to see some other things, how he wants you to see it. And so those are things that God wants us to kind of bring to. And then you said another thing I think was very powerful, was surround yourself with the people, places that you want to go, and then you can do that virtually. You can do that with the person that you have. Having that network of folks in place is really key as well. I want to leave you as we're transitioning here. Thank you all. We've been growing online as well, and we actually have 18 people right now with us. And I know some people have popped in and out a few times, and we're growing here. So thank you for joining us here on today. I want to talk a little bit about, you mentioned this earlier. You talk about the power of intention, but also too, professionally, one of the things that I learned from a mentor was just understanding the type of relationships you should have professionally, whether in the business space or in the corporate space. Can you speak to the importance of having mentors, sponsors, allies, and other people that you can surround yourself with? Because then you can have colleagues, right? That's very important. That's good to have that. But also it's important to have these other types of relationships. So can you speak to that really quickly about the importance of those types of relationships?
Yeah, it's very important. I would say one thing is, for me, God has used to bless my life. There's never been a job I've applied to. I've been invited to jobs. And that's a way I know I'm transitioning. I get invitations. Why? Because there is a seed that's planted in relational building across years and decades that lingers, and people know each other and they talk, and it's like, oh yeah, this person knows this person, and then that validates it again. So that, needless to say, it's important first to do excellent work, to live a life of integrity, and a life people will remember how you make them feel, the value you added to them. It's so important when you come into a conversation, into a relationship. Send them a thank you note. Send them, I appreciate this, add value to that person. If you're in an organization, add value to that. It might feel like, man, you're being a slave in that space. There's a balance of being the one that everybody asks, but it's also a balance of being recognized as the one that gets it done and gets it done well and shows up and it's on time. Create that pattern. That is first important because people recognize and they would want to align with that. And then having sponsors. Sponsors are people that you might not even know. They speak on your behalf in a room that you would never be able to step into. They advocate for you to say, this person should get this opportunity. Some of them advocate because they see you look like them, you're Black like them, or you're a woman like them, or you're Black male, whatever it is. They do, or whatever, for that whatever reason they want to advocate for you. Second is allies. Allies are more like peers. They're people that you can lean in on and just say, hey, I need a little bit of just can you help me kind of get this? I need this information. Can you help me give me some insight on what I should do? Like people that wouldn't judge you, they'll just be like, hey, I'm having a rough day. Have those people also in your corner because you will need them. And some of them they can also be like a great, just support system for you. And then you also need people that are mentors. Mentors are people that will bring you really close and help show you how it's done. It's one thing to from up there to see a job description. This is how this work is done, but something that somebody can pull you in and say, you can shadow me and ask me any question, and I can show you how to talk. How do you respond in a conversation when you are put in front of this kind of person? How do you set yourself up? What kind of systems do you need to set yourself up to be able to excel in an executive space? Those are mentors. Those are people that are very intentional. They're people that would spend their time talking and walking with you. I've tried so many times. Sometimes I've when I was earlier on, I'm like, oh, can you be my mentor? Can you be my mentor? Don't just pick a stranger to ask them to be your mentor. But because I remember I was like, oh man, this person never talks to me ever again. She probably think I'm being pushy. There was one Igbo lady I met online. I was like, oh my gosh, I would love you to be my mentor. And she never talked to me after that again. So anyways, maybe I did it wrong. But what I learned from that was that if I'm going to ask somebody as a mentor to mentor me, it has to be somebody that over time I've kind of known or has shown some level of interest in getting to know me. It has to be mutual. So what you might want to do is just say, hey, can I, what you do is so powerful. I just would love to get advice once in a while from you. Is that something that's okay? So in your mind, they're like a distant mentor, but they've given permission to ping them to get a quick advice, and over time, that advice, and they'll start seeing, you start sharing things that you're doing, they start seeing it, they're like, oh my goodness, congratulations on that. You're like, oh, can you just give me a quick feedback on this? I'm about to submit this. I just want somebody else to look at it. That's a way of you don't want to overburden them, but you want to create a relationship where you know that they have something to bring to the table. Sometimes you have to look beyond your workplace. There's so many groups that that's available out there. That people are intentionally. I try to lean in. Trust me, I lean in on the Black side. Sorry. Because why? I'm more comfortable there. So I lean in more there. So if I see a Black woman, I know that she's not going to push me aside. So I would ping her and just say, hey, I just love what you're doing and you inspire me. And I've never seen a Black woman really come out. I just ask for advice. Can I get advice? And I acknowledge the work that they're doing. I acknowledge the work that they're doing to create space for us, for people like me in an environment. So I would say those are be some tips that could help when you're stepping up.
There's a question that came. In that someone sent from a different platform, and it's about building teams and also having employees in place. So for those who maybe in a corporate setting will have teams. And they have, how do I pick the right team? Sometimes I don't have a choice over what team I'm working with. Sometimes I have a choice. For those who are running small businesses and thinking, I need to hire people, how do you go about that? Hiring the right people, having the proper teams in place for what you're doing?
Yeah, for me, for teams are very important. I've learned the hard way. When I first started like managing, I hired 2 people that I had to fire. And I immediately knew I hired the wrong people. What was missing? Character is the biggest thing. People can be trained for skills, but the biggest thing, you can't train people for character. And those 2 people, one was lazy, the other person was entitled. You want a teachable spirit. A teachable spirit is the biggest spirit, and a passionate spirit. Those 2 things I found have served me well in my in the work that I do. I've had people, they might be what we call a B performer, meaning they're trying. But trust me, if you tell them, hey, I want you to do this, they will go an extra mile to get it done. Those people, you can't train, and they would put everything on the line to get it done. And the second is passion. Are they passionate about that work? I know sometimes we all have different jobs. Not every job like inspires you. If you're like, if you're working in the manufacturing and your job is to make sure the screw that goes into the car is tight, there's nothing inspiring about that. It's just some quality control in it. So I understand not every job gives you that or, but at the same time, how much did they take their job seriously? And they're ready to show up, and are they hungry for it? People that are hungry for what they want, then that hunger could be different. They're there because they want to make money. They're there because they want to grow. They're there because they want the next level. Those 2 things are important, I found, because then you can have a pathway for them and always put them at the front and center. My teams, one of the things that has worked well for me is that I look for a way to develop them. When somebody comes and I understand their weak points and their strengths, and when I see their strengths, I call it out and I shout it out. Everybody knows this person is great at this. In the corner, I tell them, this area, you've got to work on it. And these are the milestones I want you to hit. And so that you can be stronger in this area. And this is the pathway I see you at in the next year or 2. Let's work together on it. And I've been fortunate to have people that have grown. I've had people on my team that are much older than me, that could be my mom's age, but what has been, they bring seasonality to that, but they are not as techie. So what will I do when it comes to presentation? I help them with the presentation. And then I just say, here, do it. Because that's an area that's not their strength, and it's going to take them so much longer to kind of get it. So I support them where I think it's a weak point. It's very small, but then find people that are ready and people that are grateful, people that have gratitude as the center, humility, gratitude, and they're confident, but they're not arrogant. They're not arrogant. Trust me, people that have blown up and they show up to a presentation and they don't have to an interview, and they don't ask you questions about like what you would need. They're not asking about what you need to meet you to make it. Like, those are the triggers. Like, they're just always arrogant about what they think they can do. They're not ready to learn. That would be a trigger that would definitely know, because where team is a combination of a we mindset. Everybody has to come together, and there's so many great people. There's there have been like so many studies about team that there was a study, because I'm going through this kind of executive coaching right now, so it's opened my eyes to like dimension of team. And they talked about, like, there was a project they gave executives that to do together, and they gave kindergartners to do. Kindergartners ended up doing it better, because why? They didn't have ego attached to it. It was just like, let's do this, let's build this, let's do this. Yeah, you did it. And the executives were just like, no, I'm this one, I'm the that one. And then they ended up not doing as good a job and spending more time on it. So just remember this: the more teachable, the more humble, more ready to learn, hungry people. I would take that over anybody that's even way more skilled, because you can teach a hungry person anything. So.
Wow. That is so true for a lot of things. That's true for spiritual pursuit of God. Hunger, God responds to hunger than anything else. That place to say a desperation, I don't know, I just want God to help me. And that also is true in the professional setting as well. And I know you're not saying hire someone who's not talented at all, but what you're saying is that if you're looking at a room, a suite full of people, right, they have similar, comparable talents, or even maybe less than in some scenarios, you're gonna always go after character. You're gonna go after someone, as Titi is telling us, someone that is teachable spirit, passionate person, someone who has humility, gratitude, and confidence. And I think those are real attributes that we could see even in the Word of God as well. And so that, thank you so much for that. There is a question here in the chat. We're wrapping up right now. I want to say this, that this has been, I don't know about you guys, but you've been dropping all kinds of gems. If you came in late, she dropped more gems before this. You want to go back and listen to this. You want to share this video. You want to like it, because this is so important information. We're giving people access to the wisdom and the power of God to excel in the business world and in the corporate world. And this can apply even to the work that you're doing in your church and your ministries and things of that nature. So please go back. Our guest again is Titi Ikhile, who's coming with a lot of information. My name is Shayola. I am the curator and the host of this platform, Wisdom for Life and Leadership. The question that we have here as we're closing out, please drop some more questions for us in the chat, so that we can answer those questions in time before we close this out. And I saw someone's hands up. I think my dad had his hand up. I don't know if you wanted to ask a question, or maybe you were just acknowledging there. But so we'll ask the question. But Daddy, if you have a question, you can either unmute yourself or you can put it in the chat as well. So here is the question that came. He says, what will you tell an individual that works with an organization and seems as though the organization is not using him or her within their talent or gifts? And this is a huge frustration for a lot of people. Like, man, I'm just doing useless work here and nobody sees my talents. Yeah.
So first, it's a big bummer when they're lost. But here's what I would say. Two things that I would depending on the nature of the work, if there is a project that you see as an opportunity that you can suggest and say, oh, I think this is really great, and just take it as a self thing that you would build and share with them. The key is to find out like who it could be your ally in the leadership that would listen to you and would not steal your idea and give it to somebody else. But we'll take it and we'll use it and find a way that you can put that out. Second thing is, if it's still not been accepted, start building your own consulting pathway externally where people would value you. And depends on the nature of the work that you do. But a lot of times, some of the things that we do in a company can also be taken externally and done as like a side hustle, do it with wisdom where they're not aware, and you're not stealing their ideas. You're doing, just bring your skills outside there. So that's one way. I think it's calling it out. If there's a way that there's somebody that you can find as an advocate, that can listen and say, hey, don't make it about you, make it about them. Like, this is something I think could help us as an organization get to this level. And these are the steps I can do to help get it there. I would like to take this project on. If they sign off on it, pursue it. If they don't sign off on it and you're able to still do it, and you can bring something back, a feedback of like, this is what it could look like. If they take it with prayer, if they take it, that will be great. If they don't, start looking at ways where you can build a pathway. Because sometimes when we're not using our skill sets in a way that's meaningful, we deplete it. And we mentally start kind of regressing back. And so it's important to kind of find those ways. To volunteer, raise your hand to volunteer for projects, raise your hand to be the one to like stay back and get some things done, just to be noticed. And pray. At the end of the day, pray for favor, pray for the Lord to say, like, remove whatever covering veil that is preventing you to be seen and to be recognized in that space. And eventually it will all come together. So.
Well, that is good. Thank you so much for that. Before I ask my last question, any other question, please drop it in the chat. I don't want to say going once, going twice, but I know she said a lot of great things, and you could hear the wisdom of God in a lot of what she's saying. You can hear the heart of God in what she's saying here through this whole time. And I want to implore you all to continue to, kind of mirror over this, maybe go back over this video again and catch a lot of what she's sharing. We will be sharing this video again. You can find it on our platform, Wisdom for Life and Leadership. Right now, it's going on live on Facebook, and that would also be on our YouTube channel, Wisdom for Life and Leadership as well. We want you to like, subscribe, and turn on your notification. That's going to allow you to know when we have other new videos up like this. So I just think that you've given us so much to chew. Like, there's a lot of information, but a lot of things that I think is resonating with all of us in unique ways throughout this interview. I want to ask one last question, if I may be permitted to do this, and maybe it's a two-part question in a way. What would be the thing that you will share with someone who's experiencing fear right now? Maybe they don't know how to, maybe they don't know how to answer God's call to them in the corporate setting, or in the business world. They don't know what to do, and they're afraid of what people might think or what they should do. What would you say to that person?
Yeah, I would say, remember Joshua. I always remember Joshua. I remember Moses. Those are, anytime there's an assignment, there's always supposed to be a bit of trepidation, because you can't do it on your own. And which is where there is a word that should go with you. That becomes your anchor when your knees are shaking, when you think like, whoosh, how will I navigate that conversation? But remember that God goes ahead of you. I've seen this so many times, countless times, where I've stepped into meetings and I thought, I have no clue what I'm supposed to say. And the angle that everything will show and it will move through, it will just be so divinely orchestrated, where I just come out like, wow, that could only be God. What I thought was a big mountain, the person just said, oh, no, it's no big deal, And so I would say, trust God and start noting the things that he's doing along the way, because it will encourage your faith. It will encourage your faith to take the next step. So where there's a reason why the Lord told Joshua, fear not, for lo, I'm with you, and understand that he is not that part of the assignment, because if you have that sent mentality, you are going to always be without, you always have a support system. The host of angels are backing you up. And so that would always be like, I'm not alone. I'm not alone in this space. I need strategy and wisdom of how I'm now going to like step into this and speak in a way that what I call there is a protocol of the palace. When Daniel stepped in there were some protocols that he had to learn, that he had to not lay his spiritual understanding under. He had to learn that, okay, this place, they have to eat all this stuff. Then you have to make a decision. Am I going to participate in that food or not participate in that food? So you have to understand the protocols of the palace that you step into. And sometimes that season is just a quiet season of learning and understanding and seeing what's happening. Who are the players? Where do I do? And your role might not be as speaking as much. So I would say when that fear is there, just know that that's the biggest, greatest opportunity for God to show himself. Prayer is so key, and asking the type of prayers also matter. Asking the Lord to give you strategies of how to speak in a space, how give you strategies of how you can represent, and also what he wants you to do in the season, understanding what's happening at that time. If you've been there for years and you'll feel like, man, I want to be able to be more open about my faith, you have to now ask God, what is the dimension of what's happening here, and how should I navigate that? It might give you an order and it might give you, say, okay, your own place is just to always talk to this person, and that person is your assignment. Because if we go out of our own pathway and we try to navigate, we could get burned if we don't understand the protocols of the palace. We could get burnt by it. But if we go and follow God's strategy, there's no way the enemy will win at us. Remember, we're wise as doves, and we're gentle as doves, we're wise as serpents. There is a pathway of being as wise as serpent that sometimes people miss, and it's not in being cunning, it's being strategic in your move. I could be quiet and be very silent for a year and just be doing underground work and building and doing things. And all of a sudden I emerge out and nobody knows. They're like, whoa, caught them by surprise. So there's so many ways that you can step into a place, but fear, let that drive you to his presence for strategy. And then go remember that you have nothing to fear in that space, and understand your role. Like go into a place, understand your role. Am I an enforcer? Am I there to build? Am I there to cut things out? You have to understand your role in that place. Am I there to build? And at the end of the day, everybody's there to leave a legacy. So you all have a legacy to leave. So the fragrance that you're going to leave, what kind of fragrance, God, am I supposed to leave here? Am I supposed to leave a fragrance of like a new approach of how we do business, a fragrance of how we treat each other, a fragrance of like a certain life, or like a new innovation in this space? What is my fragrance? Like it's a scent that you leave in that space that people come in, and when you're not there, they're like, whoa, something is missing here, in this space, So yeah, God will give you the right wisdom. Remember that it's more important that we shine than what we say. The shining is the key that will draw men to him. They will start asking you, tell me more about, I see this. Oh, I never knew this. Tell me more. That is the invitation you want. You want to build it so much or you shine. And we need, this is like, I would say like more than ever before, is that we need to understand and know God personally, because as you step out there, he will give us directions on what to say and what not to say, and how to move forward or how to hold back, because every day is a different day. So.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for that. You said, let fear propel you into his presence. You're afraid, like everybody else has done anything great for God. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. Moses had that fear. Jeremiah had that fear. I don't know. I'm a child. I know. Whatever the places that we've gone, even Jesus on the road to get to Calvary was afraid. He had fear of the pain that he was about to endure. But he said, Father, not my will, but let thy will be done. And so that place of surrender, the place of going into and chasing after the presence of God, is going to be the difference. I'm telling you right now, like, I can't tell you how many projects I've embarked on in the workplace that I know, if not for God's intervention, for prayer, in his presence, hearing his voice, asking other people to pray with me, I would not be successful in those places, because there is a spiritual warfare. I know we go to church and we think spiritual warfare is just in the church and in my house. But when you go to that job or in that business, there's a lot going on there, because there's that people, this is the marketplace, right, in a way. And we need the presence of God. We need that the ability to be able to, for us to navigate through this and the places that God has called us to. And so we need the insight of God. And this is why we keep on saying, you need the wisdom, but you need the power, also the power that changes, the power of God that makes the impossible possible in the places that we go to be able to do that. Thank you so much, Titi, for that, for those words. What would be a partner word of encouragement for any woman or any woman that is watching this? This is Women's History Month edition, and we celebrated International Women's Day on the 8th as well. But I wanted to encourage the women on the platform as well, for those who'll be watching later as well. What would be your word of encouragement for women in the business, in the corporate world, or even in ministry?
Yeah, thank you so much. So I would say there's a process. There's a making of a person, and don't rush your process. and also celebrate what God has brought you through and the journey that He's taken through. We start somewhere, and God might, but also know that the more you make yourself available to Him, recognizing like, okay, God, I just want you to be glorified in my life. At the end of the day, it's not, somebody asked me, they tell me more about what like your next career goal is. I'm like, I don't know. I just asked the Lord, like, where are we going? What's the next assignment you have for me? And when the time is up where I'm at, lead me, God, to the next space. But then equip me, because one of the things I see is any time you find adversity, use it as a building place. Don't use it, don't run away from that. There have been times where I've been like also tired of like fighting. I want to run away from the adversity. Let adversity be the place of growth. Let it be a place of like, of the making of your strength in inner core. And also, before you step into a new space, ask for an anchor word. Anchor word, for me this year, as I stepped into it, because I stepped into a new role, the Lord said, give me Exodus 4:15 about do it, I'll put the words in your mouth, speaking to Moses. And so that became my anchor, so that I have different seasonal anchors that I lean into, that I step into that place, and the rema that lifts me up, that the fear disappears no matter what. And then also, it's important that I also do my part, equip myself, because when we're in the marketplace, we have a dual responsibility. We're a king and a priest. And as a priest, you're coming, downloading heaven's mind, what He wants you to do, His insight, His wisdom, what you want to do. But also there's a way, if you're a surgeon, you're not going to just say, you have to go to school, you have to equip yourself with updates of things that's happening. You can't just say, Spirit of the Lord, come, fire, fire. Let's cut this person, let's open it up. And God forbid, it will not work. So you have to equip yourself. So there's the king place of equipping yourself and making sure that you're relevant, you're staying in touch of what's happening around you, and you're not just, staying back. I strongly believe this. We are average of the 5 closest people that are closest to us. Find your 5 and make it count. Let them strengthen, let them call you out, let them challenge you, and if you only have 2 for now, just keep working with that 2 or 1, but don't do life solo. Don't do life solo. It's so key that today where we keep continuously walk in a place of understanding that our lives, we have so much more. If I look 7, 6, 8 years ago of what I thought about myself and how I perceived myself and how I was working, I'm a complete different person, in terms of how I speak, what I understand of what I'm capable of, and what is God has used it to do. And that was a season of making. It was a season of making. There was a season of where I just was not confident. I didn't know how to do things. I didn't know some practical things, but I learned along the way. I took classes, I watched videos. And then I also stayed in a place of prayer and hearing God, and as you hear God, God starts tuning your ears, hearing to understand, because you also been hearing for an environment, for a region, for that place. So hearing for that purpose is also matter. So build yourself, equip yourself, surround yourself with people that are going to also do the same. Think of it as the physical side as a king, you have to serve, and then as a priest in the presence of God. When you start doing those things, you start seeing God trusting you with more, and men trusting you with more. You find favor with God and favor with men. And those things will slowly start moving you to the next level. And always remember, it's not for your own grandization, it's really for His purpose. So tomorrow He might say, go and sit down in the parking lot and do nothing for a year. And just be content with that. But at the end of the day, is what is His assignment for us, and where are we, how are we equipping ourselves to get there. So
Thank you so much for that. This essentially kind of concludes our time But Titi, I don't know what to say. God has definitely used you to share so much with us today. Understanding the presence, understanding the dual purpose of our role as priests and as well as king, and being able to navigate that in this place. And my prayer for everyone on this platform is that God will take you to the places that you need to go, that you will be filled with the wisdom that is needed, that you will be filled with the power of God to execute on the things that you must execute on. And I thank God for what's being shared on this. I want you guys definitely to continue to share this information. Or right on the screen, I'm sharing some of our information right on the screen. Our website, which is wisdom for life and leadership.com. My email, if you ever have any inquiries, wisdom for life and leadership at Gmail. And then we have our social media handle on Facebook. It's the same, wisdom for life and leadership, YouTube and Instagram as well. Titi, do you want to share any of your information if anybody wants to get a hold of you? Maybe
yes.
In the chat.
Yeah, I'll drop something in the chat. I'm not as super like out there like my brother, but I am. There's something that is going to be released in a couple months that allows women to come together, because I see a need for a authentic, like safe space for you to grow and to also find other like mind, that you can kind of connect with. So there'll be something that'll be coming up that allows us to come together in a safe place. So I will put my information in the chat, and so you can kind of stay in touch. Some of you, I know you already, so.
So if you want to take a moment to thank Titi, please definitely do that. She's putting her information in the chat. Titi is both an executive, a pastor, a woman of God that just brings so much to the table. She mentors people, and we're gonna definitely have her back on this platform to kind of share with us more things. And we thank God for you, Titi. I bless the Lord for you. It's great the honor and privilege to call you my sister, in the true essence of that word. and we thank God for that. She just shared her on LinkedIn as well. You can find her on LinkedIn if you're looking for her. And really just kind of continue to connect with her. But we thank God for you. Wherever you are in your journey, know that God is with you. Know that Christ is both the power and the wisdom of God, and he's available for you. And so we thank God for Titi. Thank you all for being here with us. And this concludes our time. Definitely watch it again on Facebook Live and watch it on YouTube as well. And definitely share it with others. Thank you all for your time. Have a good one. God bless.
Thank you, everybody, for joining. It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me. I had a great time.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. God bless.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Blessing.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you all.